Sadly, this is a day in Manitoba and across Canada that will be remembered as one of tragedy and incredible sadness. Above all, I want to express my deepest condolences on behalf of the RCMP to every family member who is grieving today. I also want to acknowledge there are many people in Dauphin and the surrounding areas who are anxiously awaiting news about a loved one. To all those waiting, I can't imagine how difficult it is not knowing if the person you love the most will be making it home tonight. I'm so sorry we cannot get you the definitive answers you need more quickly. Please know that the RCMP have sent every available resource to the scene and are working very closely with the medical examiner's office. We will continue to work nonstop so that you have the information about your loved ones. A family support center has been set up in the basement of the Lutheran Church at 2 Kirby Avenue East in Dauphin. We have officers there who will do their best to answer questions from families who are concerned. Families can also call the support center at 204-647-5058. Again, that's 204-647-5058. Please only call if you're a family member who's concerned. This is still very early on in the investigation, but we will provide as much information as possible about what occurred. This will include some numbers. Please note that throughout the day, these numbers have changed, and they may continue to change as day progresses into night. What I can confirm right now is that a bus carrying approximately 25 people collided with a semi at the intersection of Highway 1 and Highway 5. The individuals in the bus were from Dauphin and surrounding areas, and it's my understanding that the majority were seniors. Within the last hour, we've been able to establish that 15 people have been confirmed deceased as a result of this collision. 10 people were transported to hospital with various injuries. Given the severity of this collision, the RCMP Manitoba Major Crime Services has taken carriage of the investigation and are now on scene. Superintendent Rob Lawson, officer in charge of Major Crime Services for the Manitoba RCMP, will be speaking and providing additional details. A tragedy of this magnitude requires strong partnerships. I want to thank the countless first responders and supporting agencies that quickly attended the collision to do all they could to help those in need. Again, our deepest condolences to all those who have been affected, and our thoughts are with the community of Dauphin and all of Manitoba. Thank you. Merci.
And I would like to invite Inspector Tim Arsenault of Major Crime Services, who will read it in French for you.
J'inviterai maintenant.
Bonjour. Merci de
Hello.
votre présence.
Thanks for your presence.
Malheureusement, cette journée sera
Unfortunately,
synonyme de
this
tragédie
day
et
will
de
be
grande
a tragedy,
tristesse pour Manitoba et le
great
Canada en entier.
for Canada and Manitoba. First of all, I want to express my condolences, the deepest, in the name of the RCMP, to all the families that are mourning today. I also want to underline that there are so many people in Dauphin and the surroundings that are waiting anxiously from their loved ones. For those that are waiting for some news, I can't imagine the uncertainty that you're living right now to know if your dear one will be back at home tonight. I'm sorry that I can't give you some definite answers more quickly. We have sent all resources that are available, and we're working closely with the medical doctor. We're working relentlessly until we have the information on our dear ones. A center of help to family has been opened in Dauphin at the Lutheran Church, 2 Avenue Carty in East Dauphin. We have some police officers there that will do their best to answer the questions of the families that have been touched. The families can also call the 204-647-5058. That's the aid center. I repeat, 204-647-5058. Please call only if you've got a member of your family that's being touched by these events. Please note, these numbers have changed during the day and could change during the night. What I could confirm right now is that a small bus transporting about 25 elderly entered in collision with a semi-remorque at the intersection of Highway 1 and 5. The people in the bus were from Dauphin and the surroundings, and according to our info, the majority of them were elderly. During the last hours, we could confirm that 15 deceased following this collision. 10 have been hospitalized. Their injuries vary from one person to the other. Because of the gravity of the collision, the section of major crimes assumed responsibility of the investigation and is on site. Superintendent Rob Lawson, the officer that's responsible to the major crimes of the RCMP of Manitoba, will give you more details. A tragedy of this magnitude asks for very solid partnership. I want to walk all the first intervenants and the support agency that were there on site to do their best to help the people that were in need. I'd like to transmit once again the most sincere condolences to all those who are touched by this tragedy. The community of Dauphin and Manitoba are in our thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I would like to invite Superintendent Rob Lawson, Officer in charge of Major Crime Services, to the podium. Je voudrais inviter le surintendant Rob Lawson, responsable des services de lutte contre les crimes majeurs, à prendre la parole.
To now take the floor.
Today is a tragic day where lives have been lost in Manitoba on a large scale. We understand the public is reeling and asking lots of questions, and people are trying to determine if their loved ones were involved. Firstly, our hearts go out to everyone involved in this horrible, horrible incident. I'm here to tell you what I can about the collision today. However, this is an unfolding event, and my facts will be very limited. I know everybody wants answers, and the public deserves those answers. Our responsibility as the RCMP is to provide the public with information, but accurate information, which can take time in an event such as this. An additional update will be provided as the investigation progresses, and those answers will come. At 11:43 this morning, the RCMP were dispatched to a motor vehicle collision at the intersection of Highway 1 and Highway 5 near Carberry, Manitoba. A semi-trailer was heading eastbound on Highway 1, and a bus carrying a number of senior citizens from Dauphin was headed southbound on Highway 5. The bus had already crossed the westbound lanes of Highway 1 and was crossing the eastbound lanes when it was struck by the semi. Immediately, it became apparent that this was a mass casualty situation. Numerous RCMPs were deployed from across the province. Major Crime Services was deployed and established an investigative structure which we refer to as Major Case Management, which is specially designed to manage large, complex investigations. As anyone can understand, there are many elements involved in investigating an incident of this magnitude, and Major Case Management allows us to manage all of those pieces to recover all of the evidence. Major Crime Services has deployed specialized investigators and experts who are very experienced in working these type of large, complex investigations. Additionally, the Manitoba RCMP has also deployed specialists in forensic collision reconstruction, forensic identification section experts, and we are working closely with other experts throughout the province, such as the Medical Examiner's Office, They are all on scene as we speak. We need to make sure that this investigation is done properly and effectively, and that we have the proper resources in place to do this. Answers will take some time, but I can assure you that the RCMP will get the answers. This incident does have echoes of the tragic collision that happened in Humboldt, Saskatchewan, and we are very much aware of that. We have already linked into the investigators in Saskatchewan who have firsthand experience and were some of the primary investigators in the investigation into the Humboldt crash, who are assisting us right now in any way we can. Even at the outset of an investigation such as this, we need to be alive to the fact that there could be wrongdoing. And if so, there could be a criminal element to this investigation. We need to get everything right. It's critical. We can't speak to much further operational details right now because we need to assure the accuracy of further details. Please understand that this is very early into this event. It only happened a few hours ago, and not all of the families have been notified of their loved ones who have deceased. We deal with very tough cases as police officers a lot. However, unfortunately, death on this scale is never normalized for us. However, we have to kick into operational gear right away, thinking about what do the families need, what do the investigators need, and what needs to be done here and what needs to be a priority. But that doesn't mean we're not feeling the pain with you. This is a very sad day for Manitobans. Please know we will investigate this very thoroughly and communicate all investigational progress as this file progresses. Thank you very much.
Today is a tragic day. Many lives were lost. We understand the pain of the public and those that try to understand if a loved one was involved in the collision. Our thoughts were all for this terrible event. I'm here to transmit what I can transmit. I know that you want some answers, and you deserve them fully. At the RCMP, our responsibility is to give to the public some information that are just, which can take time in which an event of this magnitude at 11:43 this morning, the RCMP has gone on the collision between motor vehicles at the intersection of Highway 1 and Highway 5. A semi-remorque going direction on Highway 1, and a bus transporting some elderly was going south on Highway 5. The bus had already crossed the pathway on the westbound and that's engaged in the path in the east side when the semi-remorque semi-truck hit. We saw that it was a situation with massive losses. The section of major crimes of the RCMP has been called on and reinforcement. We have a structure of investigation, management of major cases that is conceived to lead some investigations that are complex and important. In an event of this magnitude, there's a lot of elements to investigate. The principle of management, the programs help us to manage in a central way all these elements. The section of major crimes deployed some experts that have a vast experience in complex investigation. The RCMP of Manitoba also deployed some investigator for the reconstitution of collision, some judicial identity experts, and we're working with other experts, so with the legal doctors also on site. We must make sure that this investigation goes quickly and efficiently, and we've got the resources to do so. We will need time to have answers, but we'll have answer to our questions. We are aware that this event reminds us of the tragic collision of Humboldt. We are already in communication with the investigators of Saskatchewan that have an experience, a direct experience, finally, following the Humboldt tragedy, and investigators are upholding us to the best of capacity. Even at the start of such an investigation, we must be aware that a blame could be brought, and this being the case, it could be a criminal element to the investigation. We have to do a thorough work, minutious. It's all I can say for now. Please understand that we're the first step of the investigation. This happened only a few years ago, and certain families have not yet been informed of the fact that one of their loved ones is deceased. The police of the major crimes are working on difficult investigation, but death at this scale will never be something normal for us. We think immediately to the operational mode, the needs of the families, the needs of the investigations, and that we must, in what order. But it doesn't mean that we're not feeling what the public feels. It's a somber day for everybody of Manitoba. We lead an investigation that will be complete and thorough, and we'll let you know on the progress more as we get information. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Merci.
Thank you.
I would like to invite Jen Cumsty, Executive Director of Acute Health Services at HSC Winnipeg, to the podium. J'aimerais inviter Jen Cumsty, Directrice Exécutive des Services de Santé Aiguë au HSC Winnipeg, à prendre la parole.
In Winnipeg, to take place.
Good afternoon. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jennifer Cumsty, and I am the Executive Director of Acute Health Services at HSC Winnipeg. There are no words to adequately express how tragic an incident this is, nor are there any words that any of us can say to console families and friends of the individuals involved in this terrible collision. I want to express my deepest condolences to families and loved ones of individuals that were lost today. Our thoughts are also with the patients who are currently in hospital, as well as their families and their friends. Family members of patients in Winnipeg who are seeking information are asked to call the HSC switchboard at 204-787-3661 or 1-877-499-8774. And family members in Brandon who are seeking information are asked to call 204-578-4080. A code orange, which signifies a mass casualty response, was declared just after noon today. A code orange triggered an all-system response to the evolving situation near Carberry, with standard protocols in place to ensure there is capacity in the system for patients to receive care. In preparation for an event like this, all care teams make every effort to create capacity. That includes emergency department staff who are lined up in the hall to receive these individuals. It includes surgical and critical care teams who cleared elective surgeries and prepped spaces to provide life-saving care. Social workers and patient relations sprang into actions to support families. This response goes well beyond the teams at HSC and includes our colleagues in Prairie Mountain and the WHA, who made every effort to move patients and ensure there was capacity for all of those injured. It is an all-hands-on-deck approach, and I want to thank everyone for their quick work, their professionalism, their dedication to patient care, and I also want to thank staff who called in to offer their help today. I can confirm the code orange ended about an hour ago. Lastly, I want to thank our emergency service response services. 12 ambulances responded to the scene today, as well as at least one air ambulance to transport patients to Winnipeg and Brandon. Paramedics and first responders spend their entire careers preparing for a day like this, hoping it will never come. Today it came, and all of them did their jobs with the utmost skill and professionalism. As they take a moment to reflect in the days ahead, I want these crews to know they did an exceptional job in harrowing circumstances. Saying thank you is insufficient, but we thank them all the same. As per our usual protocols in a situation like this, critical incident stress management debriefing will occur to ensure supports are available for anyone on our various teams who may need it. Anyone who is in need of mental health supports related to this event can also call Wellness Together Canada at 1-866-585-0445. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Merci. I will mention that Lynette Saragusa, CEO of Shared Health, is present to answer questions after all the remarks. Lynette Saragusa, PDG de Shared Health, est présente pour répondre aux questions après toutes les remarques. Now I'd like to invite Honorable Cliff Cullen, Deputy Premier of the Province of Manitoba, to the podium. Je voudrais inviter l'Honorable Cliff Cullen de la Province du Manitoba à prendre la parole.
To say a few words.
Good afternoon. On behalf of Premier Stephenson and the Government of Manitoba, a message. Our hearts are broken and our thoughts are with the families and loved ones of all the lives impacted by the horrific and devastating tragedy near Carberry. I know our dedicated first responders and healthcare workers are doing all they can to assist, and I want to thank them on behalf of all Manitobans. Crisis support will be available to all those involved in the hours and days ahead. The flags at the Manitoba Legislature have been lowered to half-mast out of respect for those we have lost far too soon. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Merci. We will now take questions. Nous allons maintenant répondre aux questions.
Take questions.
Can you tell us the condition of the drivers of both the, the truck and van, and also, do you believe the vehicle carrying the seniors had the right to play
I'll start off by answering the question about the drivers. As of right now, the drivers are alive, being treated in hospital. As far as the vehicle pulling out or the right-of-way, I'm not going to answer that right now. I know that's an answer that people are looking for. That's a real critical point of the investigation. Right now, we can't say that they were headed there exactly. They were heading southbound towards Carberry on Highway 5, and they had about to cross number 1. That's all I can say right now on that one. What we do know is that the van was coming from Dauphin. A lot of the people on board were from Dauphin and the surrounding area. So we're assuming right now it was coming from Dauphin. That's correct. Southbound.
Can you discuss the conditions on the road at the time, clear, overcast, that kind of thing?
Right. I wasn't there personally at the scene myself, but what I've been briefed on is that the highways did appear clear at this time.
We understand that there was perhaps some fire and so forth that may have started. Can you just describe the scene as your officers arrived?
Right. I know some of those pictures were released on the media, so I think people can view those for themselves out of respect for the families and the victims of this horrible crash. I'm not going to speak about the events at the scene. What's out there is what's out there, and people can view that on their own right now.
Difficult, though, for the investigators?
Absolutely. What I can say in Manitoba from my career and prior to that, I don't believe we've had a mass casualty traffic accident like this in Manitoba. So this is new for us and our investigators, and it's very emotionally draining for them as well. And as I mentioned, this is a very complex, large investigation with lots of things we have to unfold and unpack. Like I said, they were all taken to hospital. I don't know exactly what their injuries are, but from the magnitude and the force that was applied, I would assume, some of the injuries would be significant.
Is there any video of the actual collision that you're aware of? Are you seeking any?
I don't know if there is video right now, but I know that's one of the key points the investigators will be searching for and looking for, because oftentimes video will tell the story about what happened. So that will be a key point.
Given the complexities of this investigation, can you say more about the challenges that investigators face in this?
The biggest challenge on these types of investigations is just to keep emotions in check for police officers. That's the biggest thing. We have a tough job to do out there, and as you can understand, there's a lot of grieving, a lot of hurt going on by the people that are on scene, including the first responders, the ambulance, the police, the firefighters, the people that are involved, and people that are showing up at the scene. So that crime scene or the scene management, that's the most challenging part.
You said police are working nonstop so that families get answers. Do you have any idea how long it may take for those families to make things?
I don't want to give any answers on that and provide false hope, but what I can say is that we have numerous investigators out there and some of the best people in this province, and we're leaning on RCMP in Saskatchewan who have unfortunately been through this before, so they're helping us with that. And like I said, I apologize because I know there's answers that people want right now. I would want those too. However, like I said, we need to have accurate answers before we release those, and that's what we're obligated and dedicated to provide. I don't know the exact details of the bus, but what I do know is a multi-passenger bus. That could be fair, yeah. I'm not sure about that. Anything else?
I guess men's at southbound or stop signs at southbound and out of the truck was going eastbound on highway.
Right. The van was heading southbound and crossing number 1, so there would have been a stop sign and then a yield sign. You're correct.
Do you have any information on what the truck was hauling?
No, I don't, ma'am. Sorry. Good. Leave that to them.
So we have patients right now. The emergency response team assessed, triaged on the scene, and then transported them to the hospitals between Prairie Mountain Health and Winnipeg. And we are continuing to triage and move them where they need to be. Most of the injuries were head injuries or orthopedic in nature, and we'll continue to assess as we go.
Give us a sense for their conditions?
No, I cannot at this time. They continue to be assessed at the hospitals.
Can you say how many hospitals have patients right now?
How many hospitals? I think 3? 4.
And can you say whether anyone's been released yet?
No, I cannot say that yet. Okay. For me?
Are you just able to elaborate on why some families haven't been notified yet? Are you still trying to find
That's a very sensitive question to answer. As you can understand, as our commanding officer noted, we can confirm there's 15 people deceased. So there's a lot going on at that scene, and we have to make sure that we have accurate IDs before we give next of kin notifications. So, that's why it's taking a little bit of time. We don't want to make that mistake.
If there are any families who feel moved to go to the scene as they await answers, what would you suggest to them?
As we mentioned, there's the number that people can call. I would suggest that's the best way to have their their questions answered. But by showing up at the scene, to be honest, it's going to complicate things for the police and the first responders in doing their job. So the phone line would be the best avenue. Thank you.
Yeah, this is where our health system works extremely well, coordinating care across the regions, across the province. So when a code orange was called, and it was called in Prairie Mountain and Winnipeg, the whole community rallied and made sure that there was space at the receiving sites so that the patients could come in and be triaged and get the required care that they needed. No one was sent out of province. Good.
Okay, thank you very much for coming.